The Decision Book by Mikael Krogerus and Roman Chapler. Introduction. Have you ever found yourself just stuck? Standing in front of your closet, paralyzed by what to wear. Staring at a restaurant menu, feeling the pressure mount as the waiter approaches. Or maybe it's bigger. Much bigger. That feeling of standing at a crossroads in your life, with signs pointing toward different colleges, different careers, different futures, and you have absolutely no idea which path to take. If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. 9 years ago, two friends, Mikael Krogerus and Roman Chapler, had a sudden realization. They found it hard to make decisions. Not just the huge, life-altering ones, but the small, everyday ones too. Life felt like a constant stream of choices, and the sheer volume of it all was overwhelming. So they went on a quest. They searched for models, for methods, for simple diagrams that could help them structure their thoughts, weigh their options, and bring a little bit of clarity to the chaos of modern life. They gathered these tools, thinking they were just creating a personal handbook for themselves. They figured a print run of 500 copies would be more than enough. They were wrong. That little handbook became the Decision Book, and it went on to sell over 1 million copies in 20 different languages. It turned out people all over the world were feeling the exact same way. What they created isn't a book of answers. It's a book of questions. It's a workbook for your mind, filled with 50 of the most powerful mental models for strategic thinking. These aren't complicated academic theories. They are simple, visual tools designed to be drawn on a napkin, sketched on a whiteboard, or held in your mind's eye when you need them most. By the end of our time together today, you'll have a glimpse into this incredible mental toolkit. You'll learn how to work more efficiently, how to understand yourself on a deeper level, how to connect with others more effectively, and ultimately, how to make better, smarter, and more confident decisions. This isn't just about choosing what to do. It's about understanding why you're doing it. So, let's open the toolbox. Book summary. The journey begins with a simple, fundamental question that plagues all of us. How do I get everything done without losing my mind? We all have a to-do list that feels a mile long. Everything seems urgent. Everything feels important. But the authors introduce us to a tool so powerful in its simplicity that a U.S. President, Dwight D. Eisenhower, used it to manage the immense pressures of his office. It's called the Eisenhower Matrix. Picture a simple box, divided into 4 quadrants. On one axis, you have urgent to not urgent. On the other, you have important to not important. Every single task that lands on your desk, or in your mind, can be placed into one of these 4 boxes. Tasks that are urgent and important, you do those immediately. These are the crises, the deadlines, the fires you have to put out. We tend to live in this box, rushing from one emergency to the next. Tasks that are urgent, but not important, this is the clever part. You delegate them. These are the interruptions, the distractions that demand your attention but don't actually move you closer to your goals. Tasks that are not urgent and not important, you do them later, or perhaps not at all. This is the busy work, the time-wasting activities that we often use to procrastinate. But the real magic, the secret to a productive and meaningful life, lies in the 4th box, the tasks that are important, but not urgent. This is the quadrant of strategic, long-term thinking. This is where you plan, where you learn, where you build relationships, where you exercise. This is the work that prevents future crises. As Eisenhower himself supposedly said, the most urgent decisions are rarely the most important ones. By using this simple matrix, you stop being a firefighter and start becoming an architect of your own life. Okay, so you've organized your tasks. But now you face a bigger challenge. A project. A new idea. A decision about your future. How do you know if it's the right move? For this, we have another classic model, the SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's another four-quadrant box. Strengths and weaknesses are internal. They are about you or your project. What are you good at? Where do you struggle? Opportunities and threats are external. They are about the world around you. What trends can you take advantage of? What obstacles stand in your way? This model was born from a study in the 1960s that looked at Fortune 500 companies. The researchers found a massive gap between what the companies planned to do and what they actually achieved. The problem wasn't incompetent employees. It was that the goals were too vague. People didn't even know why they were doing what they were doing. SWOT was created to bring clarity. By honestly assessing these four areas, you can form a real strategy. How do we use our strengths to seize opportunities? How do we guard against threats by improving our weaknesses? But what happens when the decision isn't between good and bad, but between two things you genuinely want? You want to go to that party, but you also want to get an early night. You want to take that exciting job in a new city, but you also want to stay close to your family and friends. This is a dilemma. For this, the authors offer a beautifully simple visual, the rubber band model. Imagine yourself standing in the middle, with a giant rubber band around your waist. One end is pulling you forward toward the new opportunity. The other end is holding you back, connected to everything you value where you are now. Instead of asking about pros and cons, which can feel negative, this model reframes the question into two positive pulls. What is pulling me? And what is holding me? It acknowledges that both options are attractive. By listing the forces pulling and holding you, you get a clearer picture of the values at stake. Sometimes, just seeing it laid out like that is enough to know which direction the rubber band will ultimately snap. Now, here's a paradox. We think more choice is always better. 100 options for a new phone must be better than 5, right? The book reveals a fascinating truth. Sometimes, more is less. This is the phenomenon of choice overload. The book tells the story of a legendary experiment conducted by business professor Sheena Iyengar. In a supermarket, she set up a tasting booth for jam. On one day, she offered 24 different varieties. On another day, she offered only 6. The results were stunning. The large display with 24 jams attracted more people. 60% of shoppers stopped to look. But only a tiny fraction, just 2%, actually bought a jar. The smaller display with only 6 jams attracted fewer people, but of those who stopped, 30% made a purchase. The conclusion is clear: a huge array of choices might be alluring, but it's also confusing and paralyzing. We become so worried about making the wrong choice that we end up making no choice at all. The advice? Intentionally limit your options. When you're in a restaurant, find the first dish that looks good and then close the menu. When researching a purchase, give yourself a time limit. As the book wisely says, more is difficult. Making good decisions, however, isn't just about organizing your tasks or limiting your choices. The most profound decisions come from a place of self-knowledge. If you don't know who you are, how can you know what you want? This brings us to the second part of the book, how to understand yourself better. Let's start with the most important question of all. What makes you happy? The psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi spent his career studying this, and he coined a famous term for the state of optimal experience: flow. The flow model shows us exactly when this feeling occurs. Picture a graph. The vertical axis represents the level of challenge, from low to high. The horizontal axis represents your level of skill or ability, also from low to high. If you're in a situation with a high challenge but you have low skills, you feel anxiety and burnout. It's overwhelming. If you have high skills but a low challenge, you feel boredom and apathy. It's unfulfilling. Flow is the channel that runs right between the two. It's that magical state where the challenge of the task is perfectly matched to your abilities. You're so intensely focused on what you're doing that you lose track of time, forget your ego, and feel a deep sense of satisfaction and engagement. Think of a musician lost in a song, an athlete in the zone, or an artist absorbed in their painting. This model isn't just a theory, it's a map to finding joy in your work and your hobbies. It tells us that happiness isn't about relaxation, it's about being appropriately challenged. But how do we see ourselves clearly? We all have parts of our personality that are obvious to us, but we also have blind spots. For this, the book presents the Johari window, a fascinating model developed by Joseph Luft and Harry Ingham. Imagine a window with 4 panes. The first pane is the public arena. These are the things you know about yourself, and that others know about you too. It's your open book. The second pane is the hidden facade. These are the things you know about yourself but choose not to reveal to others. Your secrets, your fears, your private dreams. The third pane is the most interesting one, the blind spot. These are the things others can see in you, but that you can't see in yourself. Maybe you're a terrible listener but don't realize it. Or perhaps you have a talent you've never recognized. This is where honest feedback from people you trust becomes a priceless gift. The fourth pane is the unknown. These are the aspects of yourself that are hidden from both you and from others. Untapped potential, subconscious motives, hidden depths that might only surface in a dream or a crisis. The Johari window teaches us that self-awareness is a continuous journey, one that requires both introspection and the courage to listen to others. Now, what about those times when our actions don't line up with our beliefs? We all know that smoking is unhealthy, so why do people do it? The book explains this with the cognitive dissonance model. Psychologist Leon Festinger coined this term to describe the mental discomfort we feel when our actions contradict our values. When we make a mistake but refuse to admit it, we experience dissonance. And what do we do to relieve that discomfort? We engage in self-justification. A smoker might say, "Yes, it's unhealthy, but it helps me relax." Or, "My grandfather smoked every day and lived to be 90. We invent narratives to close the gap between what we do and what we know is right. We look for information that confirms our choices and ignore everything that contradicts them. This model is a powerful reminder to be honest with ourselves, to admit when we're wrong, and to choose changing our behavior over changing our story. The journey of self-discovery culminates in one of the most practical and reflective tools in the entire book, the crossroads model. This is for those moments when you truly feel lost and have to ask, "So, what next?" It's a visual map to help you find your direction. It starts by looking back. You ask yourself, where have I come from? What were the key events, decisions, and people that made me who I am today? Then, you look inward. What is really important to me? What are my core values? What principles guide my life? Next, you look outward. Which people are important to me? Whose opinions do I value? Who is affected by my decisions? Then, you identify the barriers. What is hindering me? What fears, deadlines, or obligations are holding me back? What am I afraid of? Once you have this foundation, you can look at the roads ahead. The model suggests imagining several paths: the familiar road, the dream road, the sensible road, and even the road you've never once considered. It's a holistic exercise that connects your past, your present, and your future, helping you make a choice that is not just logical, but deeply aligned with who you are. Once we begin to understand ourselves, we can turn our focus outward, to the complex world of other people. The third section of the book is called How to Understand Others Better. One of the most memorable models here comes from a surprising source, Donald Rumsfeld, the former U.S. Secretary of Defense. In a now famous press conference, he laid out a framework for analyzing risk that has become known as the Rumsfeld Matrix. He spoke of 4 categories of knowledge. First, there are the known knowns. These are the risks we are aware of and have prepared for. You know theft exists, so you lock your bike. Second, there are the known unknowns. These are the risks we know exist, but we can't predict when they will happen. We know the stock market will crash eventually, but we don't know the exact day. Third, a tricky one, the unknown knowns. This is the realm of intuition, that gut feeling that we know more than we think we know. But the fourth category is the most powerful, the unknown unknowns. These are the things we don't know that we don't know. The risks that are completely off our radar because we lack the imagination to even conceive of them. The attack on Pearl Harbor was an unknown unknown for the U.S. They simply never imagined such a thing was possible. This model teaches a profound lesson in humility. It reminds us that the biggest catastrophes often arise from a failure of imagination, and that true wisdom lies in acknowledging the vastness of our own ignorance. But what about smaller failures? Why do mistakes happen, especially in teams or organizations? The book uses a brilliant visual metaphor called the Swiss cheese model. Imagine an organization's defenses against error as several slices of Swiss cheese, lined up one behind the other. Each slice is a layer of protection, a policy, a checklist, a supervisor. In a perfect world, these slices would be solid. But in reality, every slice has holes, unforeseen weaknesses, moments of human error, or technical glitches. Usually, a mistake gets stopped by one of the slices. An error might get through the first hole, but the next slice of cheese blocks it. A catastrophe only happens when, by sheer bad luck, all the holes in all the slices line up perfectly, allowing a single mistake to travel straight through all the defenses and cause a disaster. This model is used in aviation and medicine to analyze accidents, and it shows us that major failures are rarely caused by a single, dramatic event, but by a chain of smaller, often invisible, vulnerabilities. To understand others, we also need to understand what motivates them. Here, the book revisits a classic, the Maslow pyramids. Abraham Maslow created a hierarchy of human needs, starting from the most basic. At the bottom of the pyramid are our physiological needs: food, water, sleep. Once those are met, we move up to safety needs: security, shelter, a steady job. Next come social needs: love, friendship, a sense of belonging. After that, we seek esteem needs: recognition, status, respect from others. And finally, at the very top of the pyramid, is self-actualization, realizing your full potential, creativity, and finding your purpose. The first 3 levels are basic needs. Once they're satisfied, we don't think about them much. The top 2 are growth needs. They can never be fully satisfied. The book adds a brilliant twist by placing a second, inverted pyramid next to the first, labeled what we want. It makes a powerful point. In the modern Western world, the things we desire the most, status and self-actualization, are often the things we need the least. Finally, let's look at the book's last section, How to Improve Others. This is where the models become tools for leadership, collaboration, and building great things together. Every great project starts with a team. But how do you know if your team has what it takes? The team model provides a simple visual test. You define the key skills needed for success, things like creativity, technical expertise, communication, and so on. You rate each team member on a scale of 1 to 10 for each skill, and then connect the dots to create a unique profile for each person. When you overlay these profiles, you can instantly see the team's collective strengths and weaknesses. Are you all strong in one area but weak in another? The model reveals that real strength lies not in similarities, but in differences. A well-rounded team is one where individual strengths complement each other to cover all the necessary bases. But having the right people isn't enough. You have to lead them. The Hersey-Blanchard model, also known as situational leadership, argues that there is no single best leadership style. The right style depends entirely on the maturity and competence of the person you are leading. It outlines 4 stages. When an employee is new, enthusiastic but inexperienced, a leader must be instructing, giving clear, direct orders. As they gain some competence but maybe lose some of that initial motivation, the leader shifts to coaching, asking questions and guiding them to find their own answers. Once the employee is highly skilled but might have fluctuating commitment, the leader's role becomes supporting, empowering them and encouraging their own ideas. Finally, when an employee is both highly competent and highly committed, the leader can simply be delegating, trusting them with full ownership of their projects. The goal of a great leader, according to this model, is to adapt your approach to help people grow, until you eventually make yourself superfluous. And what about the reality of managing any project? We all want our work to be good, fast, and cheap. The project management triangle delivers a dose of timeless, humbling reality. You can only have 2. Think of a triangle with good, fast, and cheap at the 3 corners. If you want it good and fast, it's going to be expensive. If you want it fast and cheap, the quality will be bad. If you want it good and cheap, it's going to be slow. This simple, inescapable trade-off is true for almost everything, from building a website to planning a party. It forces us to be realistic about our priorities. You can't have it all. You have to choose what matters most. From managing your time to understanding your own mind, from navigating risks to leading a team, these models are more than just diagrams in a book. They are lenses. They are frameworks that take the messy, complicated, and overwhelming reality of a situation and simplify it, not by ignoring the complexity, but by focusing on what truly matters. They don't give you the answers, but they ask the right questions. And often, that's all you need to find the answer for yourself. Commentary. As we close the pages of the decision book, what stays with me is not just the cleverness of the 50 models, but the profound philosophy that underpins them all. In a world that is moving faster every day, drowning us in data and overwhelming us with choice, the authors offer a powerful antidote: the simple act of structured thinking. This book is a quiet rebellion against chaos. It teaches us that clarity doesn't come from having more information, but from having better frameworks to understand the information we already have. These models are like a set of mental chisels. They allow us to take a big, intimidating block of a problem and carefully chip away at it, revealing the elegant solution hidden within. What I find most beautiful about this approach is its humility. The book never claims to have a magic formula for success. Instead, it acknowledges that life is complex and uncertain. It reminds us, through models like the Rumsfeld Matrix, of how much we don't know. And through models like the Swiss cheese model, it shows us that failure is often a result of systems, not just individual blame. This fosters a mindset of curiosity and compassion, both for ourselves and for others. So, how can you start using this powerful toolkit in your own life, starting today? Here are 2 simple actions you can take. First, pick just one model and live with it for a week. Don't try to memorize all 50. Just choose the one that speaks to a problem you're facing right now. If your days feel chaotic, draw the Eisenhower Matrix on a piece of paper and put it on your desk. For every task that comes your way, force yourself to place it in one of the 4 boxes. See what it feels like to consciously separate the urgent from the truly important. The experience will teach you more than just reading about it ever could. Second, embrace the power of drawing. The authors repeatedly emphasize that these are visual tools meant to be sketched and worked with. The next time you're wrestling with a tough decision, grab a pen and paper. Try to draw your problem. Maybe it's a SWOT analysis of a summer job, or a rubber band model for a difficult choice. The physical act of translating your jumbled thoughts into a simple diagram is a form of magic. It forces clarity. It uncovers connections you didn't see before. You don't have to be an artist. As the book says, these are abstract illustrations, not works of art. In the end, the decision book is more than a guide to making choices. It's a guide to a more intentional life. It gives us the tools to move from being reactive passengers, tossed about by the winds of circumstance, to becoming the thoughtful, strategic pilots of our own journeys. It teaches us that the quality of our lives is often determined by the quality of our thinking. And with these models in hand, we are all equipped to think a little better, a little clearer, and a little more wisely. That was a summary of the Decision Book by Mikael Krogerus and Roman Chapler. We've certainly touched on the core ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. It can show you the layout, point out the major cities, but it can never replace the feeling of actually walking the streets, breathing the air, and discovering the hidden alleyways for yourself. The real power of this book is in its application. If any of these mental models sparked a little bit of curiosity in you, I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Using these tools to dissect your own challenges is an experience that can genuinely change the way you navigate your world. You can find a link to the book in the description below. And of course, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Thank you for joining me, and let's keep growing together.